fear is something that we deal with in our day-to-day life, obviously, for everybody across the board. But I think in divorce in particular, or a child custody situation, we just start to have so much fear around so many things.
Most of the things that we do fear don't happen. It's kind of funny because I worry about the outcome of the case, or I worry about my next court appearance, and then the court appearance comes and it's fine.
It's like, why was I so worried?
And then that evening, the car breaks down.
Which we weren't expecting. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think fear manifests in different ways for different people. Some of us are worriers. I think that's true of you.
Right.
I think you're a worrier.
I'm a Golden State Warrior.
Yes, and you have anxiety. I would say that mine probably comes more in the form of stress, because I always feel like I got to fix the problem. So I stress out about finding that solution. And, it's statistically, I've heard different people throw out different things, but, it's like 98% of the things you worry about that you fear and stress and worry on a day-to-day basis never happen.
They never happen.
It's the things that you aren't even thinking are going to happen that blindside you. My favorite quote about fear is from Tony Robbins, as Thomas just read from my notes. And, this is a quote that I probably heard from him many, many years ago, and it has just always stuck with me. And that is, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of fear that you can reasonably tolerate.
Wow. In that case, I should be a millionaire.
Let's define reasonably tolerate. I mean,
or a billionaire.
And I've said this quote in other episodes. If you've listened to multiple episodes, you've probably heard me quote that quote before. But the thing about it is that doesn't mean, I can sit around and I can have all this stress and fear and all this kind of thing. As long as I'm gritting my teeth and tolerating it, then I'm going to get this great quality of life. That's not what it means. What it means is, if you can't take action in spite of the fear,
in spite of risk,
right, and sit with the fear and be okay with this being outside of your comfort zone, or being okay with whatever's happening and trusting that it's going to work out, then you don't get the benefit. It's risk reward. If you can't step outside and take that risk and step outside your comfort zone, you don't ever get that quality of life that you want. Because we all have these visions of what kind of life we want, whether it's, the perfect relationship we've always wanted, or, being extremely wealthy, or having tons of free time, or, kind of whatever your vision is of this, what would be your ideal life. You can't work towards accomplishing that goal if you're letting the fear hold you back from taking the action that you need, because you're afraid that you're going to fail, or it won't work, or
right. Well, fear causes paralysis.
Correct.
Because in my case, a lot of times I want to accomplish things, but the act of doing the work involves the fear. And so I'm conscious of it while I'm working, and that's like preparing for trial is a perfect example.
Right.
And that's something that I'm tempted to put off because I feel afraid while I'm doing it.
Right.
That's classic paralysis.
Right. And it's a lot easier to just bury your head in the sand.
Yes.
And that is one way of dealing with it, is sometimes people bury their head in the sand. When we go through a divorce, the fear manifests around specific issues. So we start having fear of things around the process, like, well, my ex lies and I'm afraid that the court's going to believe them.
Yeah.
Or I'm worried about my kids. I'm afraid what's going to happen to them, or how they're going to feel, or how they're going to be parented in the other world. I mean, just, all the things that come with the process. There's a lot of financial fear.
Yeah. Well, I'll take the first one, the lying. And the fact is that the court is looking through a pretty small window at your world. But a big portion of what they see is your demeanor and the way you handle yourself. And that often speaks louder than the lie that the other person told. So what people do is they react in fear because the other side says something negative about them, and they're afraid the court's going to believe that.
Right.
So they jump in, that's a lie. They do this. I can't say the word. It's a family show. But baloney, right. Or they roll their eyes or they, and the thing is, court requires a certain amount of acceptance. There's only so much you can say in a 20-minute hearing.
What's interesting is the judge picks up on, most of the judges that we've ever been in front of pick up on that demeanor.
Right.
We had a client who rolled his eyes, who ended up with with the judge going, "Oh, I just saw you roll your eyes. I have a problem with that. Well, I'm just going to change my orders," and it got worse for him.
Right.
Or we've had people who are standing there, and while the other person's talking, they're shifting and sighing and putting their hands on their hips and shaking their head and different things that the court is picking up on. And you're not saying a word necessarily, but you're communicating, all of your emotions around what the other person is saying. You're communicating all of your stress and all of your fear to the court.
Yeah, I try to tell our clients, don't do that. Just sit. And in a 20-minute hearing, I'm going to do the talking.
Right.
So all you have to do is sit there and look straight forward. If you're self-represented, it's a little harder to do, but try to control what you're putting out there in a nonverbal way. Difficult to do, but we're going to get into the solutions later on.
Parties frequently, I was just having this conversation with a client last night. What they want to do is they want to connect all the dots for the judge. Oh, we'll see this equals this equals this, and then that exhibit I submitted, and make the whole big loop. The court does this all day, every day. The judge they're experienced. They know what they're doing. By the time they get to be a judge, they've been a lawyer for many years, and they can see the patterns. They can see, the connections. You don't have to tell them every single thing. Sometimes when you start trying to connect all the dots for them, they start seeing you as the problem,
Right.
So you have to be careful, how far you're going. Financially, it can be really scary and really challenging.
Right, and then the fear paralyzes you, and you don't become solution focused.
Exactly.
That's what I like. I like the single parents group because these people are taking action.
Right.
And I would say the number one antidote to fear is to take action.
Yeah, and that is what happens is people get very stuck in the conflict, and they just can't. They get paralyzed, and they don't do anything. It's like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and not do anything. And I'm just going to wait and hope the walls don't cave in on me, And you have to recognize that not doing anything, that's a choice too. Right. So you're making a decision either way. It's just that you're making a decision when you don't do anything to just let whatever happens happen to you.
Right.
Instead of stepping out in action and taking some control over the situation and trying to solve the problem proactively.
Because taking that action makes you feel better.
You do. We get drug into this process, and we have fear, and we feel stuck, and we don't take action. But honestly, taking action and moving yourself through it is part of, you don't know what's on the other side of the door. And so you're scared. And, I've always heard the little quote, God never closes a door without opening a window. And if you are standing and pounding on that door and not even realizing the window is open, you can't move on to that next phase of your life.
True.
And that next phase of life for me was you and our relationship and our business and all of those things that
my condolences
that I would not have been able to step into if I hadn't have finally figured out how to let go and move through the divorce process.
Yeah, and how about this, folks? What if the best stuff is on the other side of this?
Right.
It can be.
It can be, and that's where you have to start to get your brain instead of being focused on what you're going through now.
It can be, but you have to make it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to make it. This is a tragedy. It's time to turn lemons into lemonade.
Yeah, this is hard.
Yeah.
This is a crisis. And for many people, this is the first real crisis that they're confronted with in their life. I mean, it was for me. I was 35. This was the first experience I had of just, I'd never even really had anybody really close to me pass away or just, different things like that we go through. I personally hadn't had any of those experiences to that point. So when this divorce hit, it was just a complete, I don't even know what to do. And I'm a very action-oriented person.
That's true. She is.
Yeah. So for me, it was really hard. So, in order to start breaking through the fear, again, you have to reprogram that internal negative self-talk and remind yourself that you can do this. You have to believe that there is a solution and you will find it. You have to just be persistent and keep pursuing those solutions. I used to say in the beginning, like some days getting up and taking a shower was my action for the day. It was like, okay, if I don't do anything else today, I'm going to get a shower. And I laugh at that now, but it really was the state I was in at the time. Some days...
And I'm glad when I met you that you were taking a shower.
You were thankful I showered.
Sorry.
But, some days I just couldn't... Getting out of bed was difficult, And so even if you can start small and just say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk. I'm going to shower. And I'm going to, get a massage, or whatever that looks like for you. And just start with some physical self-care, and that will get you on a path to taking some action. The fear and the stress and the worry and the anxiety is usually because you're going through some struggle. Mm-hmm. Some struggle that results in a life lesson.
Right.
And a gift is always wrapped in that lesson.
Yeah.
But you have to go through the struggle and you have to walk that and learn the lesson in order to get the gift on the other side.
True. But
there is a gift on the other side. And if you don't believe me, look at our marriage and our relationship, because this is so not the marriage and the relationship I had before. I was so fearful of leaving it. I was scared financially. I was scared for my kids. I was scared for me. I felt like, I don't know if anybody will ever want me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to find another person. All the normal fears that we all have when we're going through this process. But you have to honor that struggle and move through it, or you don't get the gift that's waiting for you on the other side.
There you go.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands.